Hey there and welcome. Today we are doing a comparison of popular iridology versus holistic iridology. As you watch this, I would love it if you would drop a comment below and remember to like this video and share it with your friends. Thanks so much. Welcome. Today we are going to do a bit of a controversial webinar. We are going to talk about the differences between the North American or Jensenian iridology, which is the very popular iridology that's out there, and holistic iridology or constitutional iridology. Now, this is a really important comparison to make, and it's going to be pretty direct about what the weaknesses are and why things need to be moving ahead. We're going to look at a lot of different eye slides in our time together today as well. And in our time, excuse me, I encourage you to drop comments in the chat box. And as it's appropriate during our conversation today, I will answer those questions and respond to those comments. So the first thing we want to be aware of is that there are a lot of iridology charts out there on the market. When we see charts that are subdivided into minute little areas, like so many of these are not really constitutional charts. These are very almost allopathic charts, because as we look at these, we see that we've divided the body into such tiny areas that if we take that chart and shrink it down to the size of an iris, some of these areas might be 3 fibers wide in a blue eye, which means that if that iris chart or if your photo is at all tilted, if it's not perfectly lined up, you're going to be misassessing what you see. And so, and some of them just get down into ridiculously small body parts that are not useful, where we don't actually have a diet for that area. We don't have a herb for that area. It's something that a medical doctor would work with, because they can slice and dice and irradiate whatever they want in there. So when you see people who are offering these free iris analyses online, 9 times out of 10, they are doing the Jensenian or Morse style of iridology, a very medically oriented type of iridology. And again, they need to be very careful to make sure that picture is totally level and that they're working with it properly. Because seriously, if they're off by even a tiny bit, the nose becomes the tongue or the eye becomes the upper jaw. And that's just an entirely different type of tissue when you're off by that much. Instead, I like to use a constitutional iridology map. Now, what is the one thing, well, what are some things you notice about this map compared to these maps? And I know these are hard to see, but you probably have at least one of these maps on your desk if you already do iridology at all. What is a huge difference that you notice between these two sets of maps? And I'd love to have your feedback on this. What do you see? What is a difference that you notice here? I'm going to give you just a minute to give me some answers in the chat box. What are some differences you see between the two maps? So we've got maps that are very subdivided, that are very much more along a medical model. And we've got a constitutional map. Just waiting for some answers to come in. And while you're doing that, lightning fingers, hopefully, what I'm hoping you're noticing is that this map is not completely subdivided. It focuses on entire organs, not subdivisions within the organ. And there's even some areas that don't have organs in them, because these are areas that would be not metabolically active. These are areas that don't affect the metabolism. With constitutional iridology, we are really interested in the chemistry of the body and how that body works. Is that what you've come up with too, as you've observed the different maps? So that means that with constitutional, we are really working from a holistic approach. We're not slicing and dicing and looking at little teeny pieces. We want to know how the whole body works together. So let's start with an eye photo here. How does that sound? You want to look at some eyeballs? If you want to look at some eyeballs, give me an "oh yeah" in the comments box. Let me know that you're here to learn some iridology. And if it's your first time with me, just remember that the more you play with me in the chat box, the more information you're going to get out of me. The less activity I see in the chat box, the sooner this webinar will end. As a formerly trained Jensening iridologist, seeing an eye like this, I would have made comments like, your lymphatic system is really congested. We need to do a lymphatic cleanse, and then these marks will go away. You have skin problems. That means we need to get you dry skin brushing using better quality things on your skin. We need to get rid of synthetic fiber clothing, and then this will become bright again. I would have told my client things like, as we look at this right eye, you have a throat thyroid problem, and we need to work on that, and then this is going to fill in nicely. You obviously have lung and heart problems that we need to work on as well. We see you have a kidney problem because we've got this fiber going sideways and we've got some shading sitting in here. And your intestinal tract is too tight. That means we need to do things to relax your intestinal tract a little bit, and that's going to move this line out somewhat. That is what I would have said as a Jensening iridologist, and did say things like that many times, was amazingly wrong every time. We did cleanses, we did protocols, we did skin brushing, we did diets, we did, you name it, we did it. We worked hard, and never once did we see tophi disappear. Never once did we see a scirpherim fill in. Never once did we see an open lacuna get less dark. Never once did we see a closed lacuna disappear. Never once did we see a fiber that was cutting across other fibers become straight. And so what that tells me is that it maybe wasn't the best way to do iridology. With constitutional iridology, we approach the eye very differently. We approach it from a genetic perspective. So the first thing we look at is not a minute detail. We begin by looking at the overall color, because the overall color teaches us about the overarching inherent tendencies. So when we see this type of an iris, we would say this person has a tendency to be over acid throughout his body, and that he has tendencies towards sluggish lymph and sluggish blood flow. We cannot say for sure, however, if he's having problems in those areas, because this is his genetic potential. He may have a really clean diet. He may have a very active lifestyle. He may be doing all the right things and may actually be helping his core blood and lymph and his surface blood and lymph to be moving appropriately. He may be keeping his blood nice and clean. He may actually be regulating his body acids very nicely with his diet and lifestyle. That is not going to change his genetic structure, right? It's going to change how his body functions within his inherited abilities, but it's never going to make him stronger than what his genes say he can be. We'll max him out, though. We will max him out. So we're not going to see any of these markings change. And you know what? It's kind of goofy to do iridology expecting the eyes to change, because quite frankly, clients don't come in and say, I want to change my eye color. They come in and say, I have a health problem. I have a symptom that I want to get rid of. And so the ultimate goal in doing iridology is not to change the eye color anyways. It is to improve their health, to educate our clients, to teach our clients how to be in their bodies and in their minds and in their spirits and in every way so that they can bring balance into how their body works. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, give me a makes sense in the comments box. Now, we are a very small group today because we usually do these at 11 o'clock, not at 10 o'clock my time. So I think a lot of people are going to show up after we're done. So because we're a small group, I'm really relying on you to be active in the chat box with me if you want to get a lot more good information. So just saying, if that made sense, what I just described about why we do the iridology, let me know. Let me know. And I want to hang on that point of changes in the iris for just a moment, because you've seen, and I've seen things on social media where they supposedly have before and after pictures of the same person. And they're saying, oh, look at this person did this cleanse and look at how remarkable it is that, oh, their eyes are so much clearer, their eyes are so much bluer, we got rid of this, we got rid of that. Oh, yay, right? And what I will tell you is, in every case, they did not use the same camera, they did not use the same lighting, they did not use the same technical settings on the camera, which means that the photos are not reliable as before and afters. I'm not saying they're lying, I'm just saying they didn't follow proper scientific protocols in gathering data for a study, okay? Because I can take any photo and I can really alter it if I want by changing the setting on my camera or by changing the settings in Photoshop, right? So if I want to doctor a photo to make it look like before and after, I absolutely can. So that's really important. When you see things that look like befores and afters, you need to understand, were they taken with the same camera, on the same settings, with the same lighting? Because if they weren't, the data is invalid. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, give me a makes sense in the comments box. Okay, so we're going to touch on a lot more indicators today that we see in an iris. Again, as a former Jensenian iridologist, I would have said this body needs a lot of cleansing. There's a lot of toxicity in here. Have you heard that? In online assessments, you have a lot of toxicity. We would have said these eyes could probably become blue if you cleanse long enough and hard enough. We would have talked about you are under a lot of stress. You're probably headed for a nervous breakdown because you've got just about 3 complete rings going around your eyes. And you've got parasites. You've got parasites in your brain. You've got parasites in your bladder. You've got parasites in your adrenal and your kidney. You've got parasites in your ovary. You've even got parasites in your gallbladder. Have you heard things like that as well? You've got skin problems. Have you heard all of this before? And again, for all of the cleanses and all of the fasts and all of the protocols I put clients through, I've never seen anything like that change in an eye. So how would a constitutional iridologist look at this? First thing is, we would want to know, what is our client's concern? Why are they seeking advice from us? So let's pretend this is a female, age 55. I actually don't remember who this is. I need to look that up. Female, age 55, she's having menopausal symptoms, and those hot flashes are just horrible. The night sweats are really getting to her. She's got some memory issues and she's got some mood issues that all started when her hormones started shifting, and she's fed up with this. How would I assess this eye with that kind of information? I would be looking at this eye and I would first say, we've got a lot of brown in this eye. That suggests your liver wants to run the show. And then I would want to know about her diet. How is her diet affecting her liver? Well, if she drinks coffee, that will have a negative impact. If she drinks alcohol, that will have a negative impact. If she consumes white flour or white sugar, that will have a negative impact. A lot of processed foods, that will have a negative impact. So liver is the first thing I'm noticing, because liver affects everything. And then I noticed that she internalizes her stress. She likes to be very busy. She likes her to-do lists. But if she's not feeding her nervous system, she's going to feel that stress a whole lot more. So we may talk further about diet. And I want to gather more information from her. Does she eat a lot of leafy greens? Is she eating a lot of grain products? How much water does she drink? Is she doing high nutrient foods like hemp hearts and chia seed, as well as other good quality foods? What is her blood sugar stability like? Because if her blood sugars are doing this, that's going to put a toll on her nervous system. Then I'm going to look at lines radiating outwards to see if there's any here that give me more information. And what I see is we have a radial furrow going straight through the adrenal glands. And that is a genetic marking. She did not put it there. It does not mean she has parasites. What it means is that genetically, inherently, her adrenal glands struggle a little bit. And they're going to need to be fed. Well, adrenal glands work really, really closely with the nervous system, right? This is a right iris. And what we see here is we have a radial furrow coming down through the ovary. While she's going through menopause, the ovaries are a little unstable. And so I want to know about her menstrual history, about her fertility history. And that's going to help me to understand more about what her adrenal glands might be doing right now. I want to, those are probably the main points. Are there more? Absolutely. There's more things, but with constitutional, we don't need to split every hair on the first assessment. We've got liver, adrenal, and ovary. So what am I going to do with this? I'm not going to put her on a highfalutin cleanse. I'm not going to overload her with supplements or anything like that. We're going to do things like have her experiment with cutting out coffee if she drinks coffee or black tea or green tea. Those are all going to upset the adrenals. And that will have a huge impact. I'm likely going to introduce to her a methylated B complex and some support for her adrenal glands. End of discussion. That's the first appointment done. And I've addressed the key areas that would affect her menopause and her hot flashes. In all likelihood, and I know this because I've done it dozens upon dozens of times, in all likelihood, over the course of the next 4 weeks until I see her again, if she implements these changes, we are going to see dramatic reduction in all of her menopausal symptoms. Do you notice that I did not split hairs? I did not play doctor and dissect her into 1,000 pieces. Did that feel like it was a fairly simple iris analysis? If that felt like it was fairly simple, give me simple in the chat box. Yeah, simple, yeah. Yeah. How many of you already have some iridology background? If you've got some iridology under your belt, give me an iridology. Just say iridology in the comments box. That's also going to help me know how deep I should go today. Some of you have some, just one intro class. Okay. So a little bit, not too much. So we're really starting pretty much with the foundations. All right, so let's take a look at this eye then. When we understand the basic foundations of iridology, the constitutions of constitutional iridology, it gives us a really solid foundation on which to build the assessment. When we combine the client's goals, what their current problems are, with what we see in the eye, it helps us to know what we need to focus on in the iris. Every marking in an iris or in a sclera is not important in this moment. The most important thing in this moment is addressing our client's primary concern, right? Because if we sidestep that, if we don't address that, the client does not feel heard. And when they don't feel heard, they don't come back. Just a little side story on this. Years ago, we've got 7 children, and some of my younger children were getting involved in triathlon with me. And my youngest son at the time was about 8 years old, and he had asthma, which we didn't need a doctor to diagnose that. I can assess that quite comfortably. And we had been working with it with herbs and with diet, and we had a really good control of it. He's really good at doing his own energy work, so he could balance out if he was having an asthma attack and just interrupt it instantly. But because of the triathlons, I wanted to speak to the doctor about the possibility of using a puffer, just having my son use a puffer just for race days, right? Because there's not a lot of time in the transitions for someone to stop and take 10 seconds to do a puffer. And so I had my son and our youngest daughter had to come with us to the doctor's office. This was a new doctor. Our previous doctor had retired, which made me very sad because he and I had a really good understanding. This new doctor was pretty arrogant and pretty sure that he was God's gift to the human race, but he was the only doctor who was available in our community at the time. And so as I had both of my children there and I was asking the doctor about my son, the doctor diverted all of his attention to the daughter and said, "Do you see she's got this problem?" And I said, "No, I don't." And it was a problem with how she uses her eyes is what he saw. But I knew she didn't because the son we were talking about had that problem and we had corrected it, right? And so this doctor kept focusing on my daughter. And it was like, I'm not here about her. I'm here about him. As a result of that, we never went back to that doctor. He wasn't listening to me. He wasn't paying attention to what I was there for. So we need to be aware of that with our clients as well. They're not patients, they're clients, to make sure that we focus on what they want, what their goals are, so that they know they've been heard. And when they know they've been heard, they trust us more, and that will allow us in future appointments to go into other areas that we see need addressing. Here's another client. Let's do a quick assessment of her. This is a female in her mid-30s, and she and her husband came to me wanting to conceive. They'd tried for a few years with no luck. They had been to the fertility clinic, and the fertility clinic simply threw a few medications at them and said, "There you go, go get pregnant." And of course, it didn't work. So this client, as we were talking and I found out she wanted to get pregnant, the first question is, how frequently do you have a period? Every 90 days. That's a red flag right there, right? That I already know what direction we're going with that. And as we kept working, because it's every 90 days, I asked her if she'd ever been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Oh yeah, and they've given me metformin for that. All right, so did they also diagnose you with PCOS? Oh yeah, and they given me Clomid for that. I've got three refills on Clomid. And so as I'm looking at her eyes, knowing what the doctors have said, what do I see? She's got brown eyes, which says liver has that undercurrent again. It's going to run the show. She's very young to be having a lipemic diathesis, which tells me that her liver enzymes don't want to manage her carbohydrates properly, which again is going to unbalance her cholesterol and likely throw her into unbalanced blood sugars, which she already had. She'd had a type 2 diabetes diagnosis and metformin. There were other markings in her sclera that we went into. She has contraction furrows, which tells me that she internalizes her stress. And it also tells me with the other things I see in her eyes that she probably has MTHFR defect. I can't diagnose that, and our labs here in Calgary won't even test for that anymore because she was Asian, and 50% of Caucasians have MTHFR, and it's a higher percentage of Asians that have MTHFR. So it's so prevalent, they stopped testing. So I knew that the wrong thing to do with her would be to give her a standard prenatal formula. She needed one that was methylated. And so as we looked at this and put this together, we started working on her diet to get her blood sugars balanced because the doctors had done nothing with that. We got her tracking her temperature so we could see what her hormones were doing. We got her on a methylated B. We did some liver support. We did a lot of work with her, and she and her husband were able to conceive and had a lovely baby boy, and she never went into gestational diabetes, which is amazing. They were sure she would absolutely go there, but she didn't. We kept her out of that. As a Jensenian iridologist, I simply would have looked at this and said, you are blocking arteries. You're headed for a nervous breakdown. You have parasites. How does that help me resolve infertility? What in that very slice and dice, medically oriented assessment helps me understand fertility? Nothing. But as I look at her constitution and I understand what her constitution is saying, and I mesh that with what I know about her 90-day cycles, trying for 3 years to get pregnant, Clomid and metformin didn't help, I now understand on a very deep level why she has fertility issues and what I can do that could move her towards being fertile. Did that make sense? If that made sense, give me a makes sense in the comments box. Nice. Sherry says nice. Yeah, makes sense. Thank you, Rachel. Excellent. We don't need to slice and dice. We don't need to have micro assessments. But Kelly, there are no parasites. Kelly's saying makes sense, but I feel like I would want to help address parasites. There are no parasites. These lines tell us there are weak links in the body that interrupt nerve feeds. These are weak links in the body where she wants to hold on to toxins, where the body may not want to invest energy to put nutrients in and take garbage out. There is nothing here that guarantees parasites because parasites don't change your genetic structure. And 95% of what we see in the eye is genetically set. It's what her parents have passed down. So we are not going to talk about parasites here, right? Now, I have had clients that I was very sure had parasites. It wasn't from their eyes. It was from their symptoms, right? If you pay real close attention, you can pretty much figure out if you need to do a parasite cleanse or not with your client. All right. Here is another lovely lymphatic iris. Now, again, as a North American iridologist, as a Jensenian iridologist, I would look at this and say that there's things that need to be cleansed, that this person is building toxicity, that that there's skin problems, we need to work on the skin problems. We would be talking about, anxiety and stress and the risk of heading into a nervous breakdown here. We'd be all of these kinds of things. And we would really be saying that we need to cleanse. And if we cleanse, we'll get rid of all of this white cloud in here too, because this white cloud says you have now a lot of acid in your body. Okay. Now, there's a couple of things that we need to be aware of. First off, every camera and every device screen shows color differently. So on the screen I'm looking at, these look rusty. They look a rusty orange color. On your computer, they may look more brown, or they may look more red, or even more yellowish. And this is one reason why we never want to rely completely on a photograph when we're doing a genuine, legitimate iris assessment, because we don't know what that eye color was really in the natural world. How do I know this? Because I have 4 computer screens, 2 of them connected to one computer. I have a tablet and I have a smartphone. I can bring this photo up on every one of my screens side by side, and the colors are different on all 4 of them. Right? That's a challenge. That's a problem. So we need to be aware of those differences in tech. What we do know about these pigments is the color tells us which organ wants to be out of balance or wants to inflict injustice on another organ. And the placement tells us which organ is going to receive that injustice. So when we look at something like this, this is not saying the kidney is toxic. It is saying the liver wants to be out of balance and it wants to impact the way the kidney functions. So if this client has a kidney symptom, yes, we maybe want to use a herb to calm the symptom down, to band-aid things, to buy us time. The bigger solution is going to be to go back to the liver and figure out, why is the liver doing this? What do we need to do with the liver to support it so it doesn't want to keep poking at that kidney? And we also want to look at that emotional linkage. What are the emotions of the liver? What are the emotions of the kidney? Are those emotions compounding to create an energetic imbalance that is allowing a kidney symptom? So there's a lot of levels we can look at this on. Again, if we were Jensenians, we would be cleanse, 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 cleansing. Have you noticed that people are cleanse happy? If you have, give me cleanse happy in the comments box. That people seem to wear it as a badge of honor. I'm doing a cleanse. I just did a 21-day detox. It's like, I'm so proud of myself. Have you noticed that? And yet, wouldn't it be so much better if they were just living their life on a daily basis in such a way that they never had a buildup of garbage that needed to be cleansed out, that they were just constantly letting it go slowly and gently every day, keeping up with the housekeeping? Kelly says, I love that you discuss the electromagnetic frequencies and how those fields are important to healing. So important. Whenever I've got a client where, we work on the physical level first, because that's what people think they're getting when they come here. They think they're coming to get the natural version of what the doctor would do. So they want the physical answers first. When we've worked for a couple of appointments and we understand each other, we know each other, we've got that trust, we've got that rapport built, then I can start going into the emotional, energetic kinds of things with them. I had a client a while back who, actually, she's been a client for quite a few years, like probably 10 or 12 years now. And early on, we got along really well from the get-go. Love, love, love working with her. And by about appointment 3, looking at her eyes, and these are not her eyes, I said, this looks like you hold on to anger and bitterness and resentment. And she said, no, I let it go. I'm good. I've really worked on that. I used to, but I don't do it anymore. Now, she is the founder of a not-for-profit organization that has a board of directors. And one of these people on the board of directors is someone that just gets under her skin. She said, we were in a BOD meeting, and this other person, I love her dearly, but in the BOD role, she gets under my skin. And she was doing and saying the things she always does and says, and I could feel my blood pressure rising. And she went, dang, Judith is right. I do hold on to anger and bitterness and resentment. So the next time she came in, she told me this story and she said, what do we do? How do I get rid of this? How do I let go of this? Because I don't want it living in my body anymore. And so we got busy and we started working with some emotional freedom technique and some flower essences to help her learn how to let go of this stuff so it wouldn't affect her anymore. So again, as a constitutional iridologist, I would want to know, what does this client want help with? We're going to pretend it's a bladder issue. And I'm going to notice that she has a predisposition towards excess acid in her tissue, which is going to compound a bladder symptom. But I also notice that her skin doesn't like to get rid of toxins very well. So I'm going to ask her about her skin. I'm going to ask her about her diet. I'm going to ask her about her lifestyle. I'm going to ask her, when do the bladder situations flare for you? And then I'm going to put that all together. And you know where I'm going to actually work with her when initially there's going to be something to calm the bladder down, but I'm actually going to work with her digestion first. Right? I'm going to help her break down her foods better, so there's less stuff getting into her bloodstream that's going to cause an acid reaction. We're going to work with her diet on that level as well. And we're going to talk about acid reactions and acid emotions and how to work with those. Right? So we're not just throwing cleanse, cleanse, cleanse. We're not just throwing a Band-Aid at her for every little mark we see. We're connecting things. We really want to get to understand how this person is put together so that we can make sense out of what we need to do and how we need to progress. Let's say, for instance, that Over the next 3 months, we do some really solid work with this client, and that bladder is just, oh, it is singing songs. It is so happy. It is just feeling so good. We've got her working with her emotions, and she now knows which emotions affect her bladder because we've worked on that, and she's just doing so well. But now she has another symptom. Maybe for her, the symptom is that now that we've taken care of the bladder, she's noticed she's got this recurring throat problem. It's actually been going on for years, but the bladder was getting her attention. Now we're looking at throat. So we're going to use the same pictures, but look at it from the angle of what do they teach us about throat? Acid, a bit of rarefaction here. We're going to ask her, does she feel heard when she speaks? So that'll be a big one. Right? And then we're going to make sure her acid levels are in check, that her diet is supportive of that. Then we're likely going to do some things to soothe the throat, but we're also then going to do maybe some flower essences, maybe some EFT, maybe some topical essential oils to help her gain confidence when she's speaking and to find her voice, right? Do you recommend sea salt and baking soda for decreasing acid related to dietary intake? Nope, never, never. I work with the foods. I work with the foods and teach them about which foods are better, which foods are not supportive. And we work strictly with the foods because she's not going to want to do sea salt and baking soda for the rest of her life, but she will always want to eat. And again, well, if she's not voicing her truth, that can happen too. Sadly, absolutely. That can happen too if she's not voicing her truth. Here's another eye. Now, as a constitutional iridologist, as a Jensenian iridologist, I would have said, oh my goodness, are you ever toxic? And look at all this yellow orange. Have you done a lot of sulfa drugs? Because that's what that is. That's drug accumulation in your system. And look at this. We've got all of this toxicity sitting right here in your throat area, and you are blocking arteries and you're headed for a nervous breakdown. How useful is that to anybody? All we've done is told them what we think might be wrong. We've not connected any dots. We haven't understood the client. We haven't helped the client understand themselves. We haven't given them anything useful. So instead, again, we know the liver wants to run the show. We know the kidneys want to have an impact here, right? We know she internalizes her stress and she likes to be busy. She runs in that sympathetic mode. About pupil size tells us she's not feeling stressed now, right? So she's in a good place that way. So where do we want to go? It'll depend on her symptoms. Let's pretend she has come in with reduced energy. She's maybe a 45-year-old woman and she's saying, oh, I can't get out of bed in the mornings. I feel lethargic all the time. My get up and go, got up and went. I have absolutely no sparkle. I feel like I'm running on empty. All right. So if I'm looking at a situation like that, I want to know about her liver function. I do want to know about her kidneys. I want to know, has she recently been under stress and that stress has let up now? And I really want to know about what she eats because I want to know how her diet could be affecting her liver, how that could be messing potentially with cholesterol and or blood sugars, how that could be messing again with her nervous system. Because if she's got a really crappy food diet, her blood sugars will be unstable. That's going to make her feel draggy all the time, right? And as I get to know that, then I know where I want to focus. And again, diet correction is always a part of it, but we never do a clean sweep. My clients don't have Oprah's cook living with them, right? They're doing this on their own. And doing a complete 180 on them is really hard. So we pick one or two key things that will have a significant impact. My first favorite is always coffee reduction. And my second favorite is, this next two favorites would be increasing protein and getting leafy greens, right? But again, I pick and choose based on the individual and based on their diet. And maybe I'm not going to do any of those things on a first appointment because this person's diet is something else, right? So I'm going to pick and choose. And then I'm going to look at that liver. And I'm probably going to do some liver support, because if the liver's out of balance, the pancreas will be too. I need the liver and the pancreas to talk to each other, to work really well with each other if we're going to get the energy coming up and get this woman out of this funk she's in. Right, so we're going to look at liver here. Maybe I'm going to do some methylated Bs just as a bit of a stopgap, but I'm definitely going to support liver, and I'm definitely going to do some food work with her. Super simple. She's already got low energy. I've got to keep this simple. If I can give her just 2 or 3 really specific things that she can do, where she can literally put it on the fridge every day and go check, 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 and it's done, then I know she can stick with it in spite of having low energy. And I will sometimes get my clients to keep what I call a pain and suffering journal, and just have them on a calendar, write down how their energy was, whatever their symptom. How was it today? Out of 0 to 10, 10 means shoot me now. It's really bad. 0 means it's gone. Or if it's energy, it might be 0s. I have none. 10 is I could climb Mount Everest in a single leap, right? And I get them to keep track of it on their calendar so they can see on their calendar the progress that, oh, my energy was a 0 for so long, but now I'm at a 2. And all I did was reduce my coffee, increase my protein, and I'm adding leafy greens, and my energy's come up to a 2. That is so easy, right? And they then have the notes that show where they started. They are assessing themselves on a daily basis to show how the progress is going. And I let them know it'll be a roller coaster ride. There'll be an upward trajectory, and then the body's going to do a reset, and it's going to drop them a few notches. And then you're going to go, oh no, it's not working. It's like, hold on, hold on. This is the process. Stick with the program. Let's build, build, build. And this next time when they build, it's going to get higher. But when they get to a certain point where their body has a lot of energy, it's going to drop again. And it's not that the energy is dropping. It's that the body says, I've got energy. I can do a bit of cleansing right now. Cleansing takes energy. So when their body does this little self-cleanse, drop, it might even look like they've got a cold for a few days, right? And once they pull out of that, up they come again. So again, we need to have these conversations with our client to find out what they want, what they're willing to do, and then we need to get them to be accountable to themselves and accountable to us as they're doing their homework so that we see the progress, so they see the progress. It's funny how, after 4 or 5 months when we're on what could be our last appointment for the next little while, because they're doing really well, I'll go back to my first appointment notes with them and I'll go, so I just want to go back over what we've accomplished. You said initially, you reported that you wanted help with headaches, that you were having headaches 5 days a week. And we've now got you down to 1 headache a month. Is that accurate? Oh, yeah, I forgot the headaches were so bad. Fantastic. You commented in your first appointment that you had problems with reflux, that you had acid reflux like 24/7. Nothing felt good. Everything caused problems. And now, the last few appointments, you've said no acid reflux. Is that accurate? Oh my goodness. I had not noticed. You're right. I feel so much better. And I get them to see the transition they've achieved with what they've done. Conversations. Again, a North American iridologist would take this eye and would say, you are full of parasites. You've got all kinds of problems. Parasites aren't genetic. If you were 25 and you had one of these lines in your eyes and you conceived a child, that child would not have parasites because of your genes. Right? So this is not about parasites. It's about a weak link in the nervous system where the nerve feed in the intestinal tract, in the autonomic nervous system, and through whatever organ sits here, it happens to be the brain, is interrupted. If we see symptoms, we'll support it. Otherwise, this person may be doing well enough that they don't need support. They may be doing everything they need to do. Is this making sense? Those of you that have iridology under your belt, is this simpler than what you've been taught before? If it is simpler, give me simpler in the comments. Let me know that this is a simpler approach. Yeah? Yeah? Seeing some simplers come through very much? Yeah? Yeah. Do you feel like this actually gets deeper and gets to the root of the problem? If it does, give me root in the comments box. Does this get to the root? Yeah, absolutely. It gets to the root by far. Yeah, we're not shooting in the dark. We're not doing a shotgun pattern. We're not, deep in the weeds. We're looking for what are the marks that give us information about why our client would have this symptom. Root and addresses first challenge. Absolutely, Rachel. Absolutely. It addresses the first challenge. And then when we've cleared that off the slate, we can go to what is the next challenge. Although, what I often find is my clients typically come in with a list of 5 or 6 things they want help with. Now, that's really cool because where I live, we have socialized medicine. And when you go to the doctor, you get to talk about one problem. And that's because the doctors can only bill for 1 appointment per client or per patient per day. So if you've got 5 problems, you have to book 5 appointments, each of those on a separate day, so the doctor can get the money for each appointment. So when a client comes to see me, this is a sweet deal. They've got me for an hour to an hour and a quarter. We're going to look at all of their problems, but I'm going to prioritize them a little bit. I'll deal with the thing they think is first, but if they've got 4 or 5 problems, I'm also going to help them to understand that the thing they think is the most important is only a symptom. And as I tie these 4 or 5 problems together, the root of that whole tree of problems is really right here. And if we deal with this, we're going to see all of these branches, all of these things that you consider to be problems, we're going to see them all soften, mitigate. We're going to be dealing with all of them because we found the common denominator, we dealt with the root. Kelly's giving me a great big yes with exclamation points. Kelly, I think you're loving this. Think you're loving this. This class has made me so happy today. I am so glad for that, Kelly. Kelly, that is so good. As a constitutional iridologist, I was taught that every one of these, what they call lesions, we call them lacunae, because what do you think of when you think of lesion? I think of cancer, right? And this is not about cancer, I guarantee that. But I was taught to deal with every single one of these, and every one of these is a pathological problem happening right now. And I'll tell you, that is so not the case. Right? Every one of these shows us that there's been a tendency that has been passed down through the generations. Whether this person is actually manifesting a problem for those tendencies, we have to have a conversation to find out. And then we want to see, how do these connect to each other, right? So, and this would be, this person has problems with their brain, they have problems with their bronchial, there's problems with the kidneys, there's problems with the spleen, we've got problems in the digestive tract. I mean, seriously, when I used to do this style of iridology, I had some good friends who owned a funeral home. And I honestly thought I should get their business cards and keep them at my desk. And when I looked at an eye like this, I should just give that to my client and say, yeah, you got a lot of things wrong with you. Contact these people, get your arrangements made just in case you need them. No, I never did that. Not sort of being a little facetious, but that's how I felt doing a North American Jensenian analysis. In constitutional iridology, we know these are all inherited tendencies. They may or may not be a problem for this person. We have to have that conversation. We have to understand what's going on. What these tell me up front is this person is at a higher risk for issues with their endocrine system. Now, that's a pretty big system, right? That could be a lot of things. I need to have a conversation. And I'm never going to say, this looks like you've got problems with your endocrine system. How arrogant and how wrong. I'm going to ask questions. My very first question I always ask is, what would you like my help with? Because that's going to tell me if it's an endocrine situation or not. And then because of what they need help with, I can take this eye and I can deduce from here why the endocrine is inherently out of balance, add the diet and lifestyle to find out what's knocking it out of balance. And then I can create a protocol, right? Same thing here. You know, we're just more of the same, right? More of the same. This is not a toxic eye. This eye does not say this person needs cleansing. This eye shows us what is inherently out of balance. Pigment is inherited. This is what mom and dad passed down. This person didn't stand in the middle of a toxic waste dump to accumulate this. This person didn't even eat enough junk food to create this. This is an inherited sign. Sometimes pigment develops over time because our eyes are not fully mature at birth. This pigment developing over time is like my hair going gray over the last 10 years, right? It's a genetic indicator of what the body wants to be doing right now, what the body is programmed to be doing. And when I understand that, I understand how to support the person. In constitutional, I was taught to, in Jensenian, I was taught to call this a weak constitution. How would that make your day? You know, as you say to someone, you've got a weak constitution. No, this person doesn't have a weak constitution. This person has problems keeping their physical structure organized. They don't repair physical structure as well as we'd like them to. That's it. They're going to have to work harder to keep their physical structure working well. Lots of lacunae in here, which do show us where there might be inherited tendencies as well. We've got lots of predisposition towards building and holding on to acid. But that doesn't mean this person has to feel like a train wreck, right? This person can feel very, very well when they understand what their body needs them to do. And as we nourish this body, physically, emotionally, spiritually, this person can feel really amazingly well. And that's what we want. We don't care if this pigment stays here forever. It's a reminder of what we need to be doing. This is never going to move. It's a reminder of what needs support and nurturing. That's all. It's not an indication of a problem right here, right now. How is this feeling for you? How's this feeling? Is this resonating with you? Is this feeling like this feels good? Rachel says, I like this method of how to work with the body. Fantastic, Rachel. Fantastic. What about everybody else? How is this feeling? If you've been exposed to iridology, to the Jensenian or North American, and I did that for 10 years, but I've been doing constitutional for 30 years. Does that tell you how I feel about these styles? Kelly says it's much more peaceful than Jensenian. Oh, it is. It empowers our clients to feel like they can do something, and it gives them hope. Kelly says, like you mentioned, some of these eyes would make us panic. Absolutely. That was my first lesson from my constitutional teacher. He put an eye, this is back in the days of face-to-face classes and projecting, iris images on a huge 6-foot screen. He put up an iris photo that on my Jensenian training was, and he said his first words were, there's nothing in this eye that should be upsetting or frustrating. All eyes are beautiful. This eye simply gives us information. Let's find out what information it's giving us, and let's use that information to empower our client to move forward with their health. That empowered me as an iridologist, right? Fantastic. So you've listened to me go on for nearly an hour now. I meant this to be a shorter webinar, but thanks for sticking with me. Brief introduction. My name is Judith Cobb. I'm a master herbalist, natural nutrition clinical practitioner, and I'm a level 3 IPA certified iridologist and a level 3 IPA certified iridology instructor. IPA only has 3 levels, and there are only 5 level 3 instructors in the world to date. It's level 3 is a level they just introduced a year and a half ago. I got into health because I had health problems as a teenager. The doctors weren't able to give me the answers. And it was actually in learning holistic things for myself that I was able to get my health in a row and to be on track. I was actually being tested at the age of 20 for ovarian problems and was told that it was likely I might not have children. We went on to have 7 children. So we proved them wrong, and we are very grateful for that. I do want to, you've had a taste of the kinds of things that I teach in the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System course. And the next course is starting on March 15th. Course time will be 5 o'clock till 7:15 Mountain Time. Now, this is a course that is only open to people who've got an anatomy and physiology course under their belt. And it needs to be like, you could look on a transcript and see anatomy and physiology and a grade, right? It can't be that it's just a part of a herbal program you did, or it was intertwined with the nutrition you learned. It's got to be a standalone course. If you are interested in learning more about the program, about how long it is, about the support that I offer through to my students and to my graduates, if you are interested in getting details about the tuition, about all the details of the course, and you've got anatomy and physiology under your belt already, and it doesn't matter if you've got iridology training or not, because we start at ground zero and we build. I have had naturopaths who've been certified in iridology by other instructors come into this course. We start at ground zero, and by the end of the course, they were saying, oh my goodness, that pulled it together. Now I understand how to use this. I learned so much about iridology that I didn't get in my first training. So it's really, it doesn't matter if you're ground zero or whether you're certified already. If you want to learn a more humane approach to iridology, and if you want to learn constitutional, we should chat. I'm going to give you a link to set up a time to chat with me in just a moment. This is Joyce Lee, certified esthetician, certified clinical aromatherapist, chartered herbalist. She said I took an iridology course from another school a few years ago, but I was left feeling inadequately trained and with no confidence in my material or my ability to perform accurate assessments. Judith Cobb, on the other hand, is a wonderful instructor. She presents the material in this course in a concise, organized way. Every aspect of this iridology course is covered in detail. She clearly answers every question asked, no matter how trivial a student may think it is. Judith structures the classes in a way that makes them incredibly interesting. Clarification is clearly established through her instruction, discussion, and student participation. And she goes on to say this course is an incredible value. Highly recommend it. Joyce is a lovely person. My students are all fabulous. Like if you get into my class, you join an elite group of fabulous people, seriously. This is Adam Dukowskis, naturopath, herbalist, and he was also a certified iridologist when he came to me. And he says that having had comprehensive iridology training, I can attest that the dynamic iridology course is well-rounded and covers all the necessary basics, taught from up-to-date information. And he talks about the ongoing support that I offer to my students, regardless of where they are in process. So actually, we're going to skip through this stuff. I just want to give you this link, this tiny URL, dynamic-iridology-insight, and I should have put that in a place where I could have copied and pasted it, and I did not. So let me just give me a moment to type this in. If you want to chat with me about the course to learn more about the details, I cannot type and talk at the same time, apparently. There we go. That should do it. There we go. It's in the chat box there. Oh, that only went to hosts and panelists. My apologies. It needs to go to everybody. There we go. Let's put that there. There we go. That should be better. If you want to get the details, this is not a high pressure sales call. This is about us meeting each other, about us getting to know each other, about me sharing details of the course with you, and about us deciding, is this actually a good fit for you or not? Sometimes it's not. And for the students where it's not, I'm happy to send you in a direction that would be better for you. If it is a good fit, I will offer you the invitation to get enrolled, right? And it's really simple. It's really gentle. There's never any pressure. I don't like being high pressured, and I don't think you do either, right? Right? No one likes pressure, but you need information with which to make a good decision. You already know a bit about how I teach. If you've been hanging out on these webinars with me a little bit, but it's good for us to meet each other, and you only can enroll in this if we have a conversation, right? Because I don't let people I don't know into the course. I want to know who they are, what their background is. I want to know that we get along well, because we learn better when we have fun together, right? All right, so want to lob this out there. Any comments or questions before we wrap up today? That was fun. I had way too much fun on this one. You know, it's, what do they say? If you do something you love, you never work a day in your life. Kelly says, thank you again, as always. You're welcome, Kelly. Anybody else, comments, questions? Thank you so much. Many blessings to everyone. Thank you, Rachel. That's lovely. Thank you. All right. Well, we'll just give it another like 10 seconds in case someone is trying to reach out. But again, feel free to use that link if you want to talk about details of the course. And let's have a conversation. Let's see if it's a good fit. With that, my friends, thank you so much for spending this hour with me. That was fun. I hope it was beneficial for you too. And I hope to talk with you on some calls, you know, maybe see if we can get you into the March 15th date, and have a wonderful, blessed week. We'll talk to you soon. Bye for now. How was that? Thanks for being with me. You know, it would really mean a lot to me if you would subscribe to this channel and like this video. It makes these videos so much more visible to more people like you who are really interested in high quality iridology education. Thanks for being with me. Have a great day. Bye for now.